So, here's the deal. I'm a guy in my late 20s, dating this incredible woman, Emily, for about 6 months. Everything's been going great: dates, laughs, casual hangouts, pretty much the perfect, uncomplicated relationship. At least that's what I thought. Now, my parents, God love them, are the definition of well-meaning but overbearing. They've been pushing me to bring Emily over for dinner for a while, and I've been putting it off, mostly because I knew it'd be awkward. But, after a lot of subtle hints and occasional guilt trips, I finally caved and made plans. Emily agreed, though I could tell she was a bit anxious about it, too. We got there, and things seemed all right at first. My mom had made her famous lasagna, which, for context, is something of a legendary dish in my family. So, there's some pressure there for Emily to enjoy it. I introduced her to my parents, and there were the usual pleasantries. My dad, always the jokester, cracked a few dad jokes, and Emily laughed in that polite, "I'm not sure if this is funny but I'll laugh anyway" kind of way. It was fine. Normal. Until it wasn't. That's when I started noticing the little things, little glances between my mom and Emily, the way my dad was a little too interested in what Emily did for a living, asking questions that felt a bit too personal. Nothing overtly strange, but it was clear that both Emily and I were growing more uncomfortable by the minute. Then came the first red flag. So, we're sitting there, eating lasagna, and everything seems fine. Then my mom starts talking about how Emily might want to consider switching careers to something more stable. My mom's one of those people who thinks you should follow a traditional path, get a degree, get a steady job, maybe work your way up in a company. Emily, on the other hand, is more of a creative type. She works freelance, doing photography and graphic design. She's got this free-spirited vibe, But my mom, being my mom, couldn't help herself. She says, "Don't you think you'd be more comfortable in something, I don't know, more consistent? Something with a real paycheck?" And Emily, of course, takes this as an insult to her career choice, even though my mom didn't mean it that way at all. You could see it on Emily's face, the eye twitch, the stiffening of her posture. I tried to step in, to steer the conversation away, but Emily snapped back. "Excuse me, I'm perfectly happy with what I do," she said, a little sharper than usual. Not everyone needs a 9-to-5 to feel secure. The tension in the room was palpable. My dad, sensing the awkwardness, tried to lighten the mood by offering a joke, but it fell flat. My mom, still not realizing the weight of her words, just kept going. "Oh, I just worry, that's all. It's hard to make a living off art, sweetie." That was it. Emily's face flushed, and you could tell this was no longer a conversation about careers, it was a personal attack. She went quiet, and I could feel the air thickening between us. And then, something unexpected happened. So, after the career conversation went sideways, things didn't improve. Emily seemed to withdraw, her smile more forced, her responses shorter. I could see it happening, and I felt the weight of it on me. I mean, I knew my mom could be a bit much sometimes, but I didn't expect Emily to snap like that. Still, I was trying to keep it together for the sake of the evening. We moved to the living room after dinner, and my mom started showing Emily some old photo albums. Emily was trying to stay engaged, but you could tell she wasn't having it. And then, this is where things went from bad to worse. My mom casually mentioned that I'd been a mama's boy growing up, how I used to cry whenever I scraped my knee, how I'd never wanted to leave the house for college. It was meant to be one of those embarrassing mom stories, But it wasn't. Not in this moment. It was like all the pent-up frustration Emily had been holding in finally exploded. "I don't think this is the time or place for that," she said, her voice suddenly tight. She was on edge, and I could feel the shift in the atmosphere. "You don't know me well enough to be making assumptions about me, or my career. And honestly, this is just uncomfortable. I don't think I can stay much longer." I tried to smooth things over. "Babe, let's just calm down a second." But she wasn't hearing it. She stood up, grabbing her jacket. "No. I'm done." My heart sank. I hadn't expected her to leave like that. And honestly, I didn't know what to do. I was caught between apologizing to my parents and chasing after Emily. I was frozen, staring at her as she stormed out the door, leaving me standing there like an idiot. Then the quiet hit me. My mom was silent, my dad was looking back and forth between me and the door, unsure of what to say. So, there I was, standing in the middle of my parents' living room, not knowing what the hell had just happened. Emily was gone. My parents were awkwardly shuffling around, unsure of what to say. The silence felt like it had a weight to it, like I could physically feel the tension hanging in the air. My dad, trying to break the silence, asked, "Do you want to go after her?" But it wasn't a suggestion, it was a statement. He could see the conflict in me. And honestly, at that moment, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. On the one hand, I felt like I needed to go after Emily and fix this. On the other, I was angry at my mom for pushing Emily too far and angry at Emily for storming out like that without giving me a chance to fix things. Maybe I should just let her cool off, I muttered, pacing around the room. I was still trying to make sense of everything that had just unfolded. It felt surreal. Like I was living in some messed up version of a family dinner that had taken a turn for the worse. My mom, now sitting on the couch, looked guilty. "I didn't mean to upset her," she said, her voice soft but still insistent. "I just thought she might consider something more practical." "Mom, it's not about that," I snapped, probably more harshly than I should have. "You don't just walk all over people like that. Emily works hard, and her career is hers to make, not yours to criticize." My dad cleared his throat, attempting to mediate, but it was clear we weren't going to make any progress right then. I felt like I was caught between two worlds, my parents and Emily, and neither side understood the other. My parents were concerned, sure, but they didn't see what was happening beneath the surface. They didn't see the hurt in Emily's eyes when my mom kept pushing. And as much as I tried to justify it, part of me felt responsible for this mess. Maybe I should have prepared Emily for how my mom could be, or maybe I should have stepped in earlier when the conversation started to turn awkward. But no, like a complete idiot, I just let it spiral. I needed to fix this. I couldn't just let it end like that, not after everything that had happened. So, I grabbed my phone and stepped outside. The cold air hit me, but it didn't matter. My mind was racing, and I needed to talk to Emily. I wasn't sure if she'd even pick up, but I had to try. The first few rings felt like an eternity. I kept picturing her, sitting in her car, or maybe walking aimlessly down the street. I hated that feeling, knowing she was upset and I couldn't even be there to calm her down. She finally picked up, and I could hear her breathing, like she'd been holding the phone away from her ear for a few seconds. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice flat. "Emily, I'm really sorry about what happened. You didn't deserve that. I should have stood up for you more, and I didn't mean for my mom to make you feel like that." I was fumbling over my words, but I knew I needed to be honest. I didn't see it escalating like that, but I should have. I just want to make it right. There was silence on the other end for a moment. I could hear her trying to decide whether or not to engage. Finally, she spoke, but her voice was trembling. "I don't know," she paused, the frustration obvious. "I don't want to be around people who make me feel like I'm not good enough. Your mom's comments weren't just about my job, you know? It was like she was saying I wasn't enough as a person." That hit me hard. She wasn't just mad about the career thing, it was deeper than that. It made me feel sick to my stomach. "I get that," I said, my voice low. "And I hate that you felt like that. I really do. But I don't want this to be the thing that makes you leave. I care about you too much to let something like this end us." She sighed, and I could almost feel the exhaustion in it. "I know you care, but it's not just about tonight. It's how everything's been going, you know? It's how I feel like I'm always the outsider, trying to prove myself to your family." That was it. The bombshell. I hadn't even realized how much she'd been carrying. "Emily, I had no idea you felt that way. I'm sorry. I never wanted you to feel like that. I'll talk to them. I'll make sure they understand." But she was already shaking her head, even though I couldn't see it. "I don't know if talking to them will fix it. I need time. I need space." I need to figure out if this relationship is even worth it if I'm constantly going to feel like I'm not enough. The word stung, but I knew she was speaking from a place of hurt. Okay, I understand. Take all the time you need. I'm here when you're ready. And with that, she hung up. I stood outside, staring at the ground, letting her words sink in. I felt like I had just lost something I might never get back. I stood there for what felt like an eternity after the call ended. The cold air didn't help, it just made the lump in my throat feel even bigger. I had messed up. And not just with Emily, but with the way I had let the situation get out of hand. If I'm being real with myself, this wasn't the first time I had ignored the cracks in our relationship. I'd brushed off little signs, thinking things would just magically work themselves out. But now I was seeing everything clearly, the tension, the resentment building, the unspoken words. I walked back inside, my parents still sitting on the couch, clearly aware of the fact that I'd been outside for a while. My mom gave me a soft look, like she knew the conversation had gone terribly, but she didn't say anything. My dad, however, couldn't sit in silence. "So, what's going on, son?" he asked gently. He always knew how to ask the tough questions without making you feel cornered. I took a deep breath and sat down, running my hands through my hair. She left. Emily left. And it's not just about tonight. It's deeper than that. I think I've been blind to a lot of things. My dad nodded slowly. It's hard when two worlds collide, isn't it? Yeah, I said, staring at the floor. I thought it would be fine, but it wasn't. I don't know how to fix it. My mom finally spoke, her voice quiet but full of concern. I didn't mean to make her feel like she wasn't good enough, I really didn't. But I worry, you know? I worry that she's not solid enough for you. You've always been my baby boy, and I just want the best for you. I knew she was coming from a place of love, but it didn't make it any easier. Mom, you can't keep doing this. Emily is an adult. She's not a project for you to fix. I'm with her because I care about her. And if you don't start seeing her that way, I don't know how much longer I can keep putting us in situations like this. That was it. The words had come out more bluntly than I expected, but it felt good to finally say them. I didn't want to be caught in the middle of this anymore. I needed my family to understand that Emily was important to me, not just some girl I was dating but someone who had become a huge part of my life. After the conversation with my parents, I spent the next few hours trying to process everything. The house was quiet now, and my parents were giving me space. I was grateful for that, but the silence just made the whole situation feel worse. Emily had left. And though I wanted to fix things immediately, I knew it wasn't something that could be patched up in a few hours or even a few days. I tried texting her, but she hadn't responded. I understood. She needed time. What I didn't know was how much time. Was this the beginning of the end for us? Or could we salvage it? I had to make a decision. And it wasn't just about what I wanted, but what was right. Emily had been clear that she needed space, but did that mean I should respect her space, or should I push to make things right? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I had to give her time to figure out if she still wanted this relationship, time to heal from the hurt I hadn't seen coming. I knew I couldn't just sit around and wait, though. I had to change something. I had to stand up for myself, for Emily, and for us. So, I made a decision. I called my mom and dad into the living room. I wasn't sure how this conversation was going to go, but I needed to set some boundaries. Look, I love you both, but if this is going to work, if I'm going to be with Emily, I need you to respect her. She's not some project to fix, and she's not going to fit into your idea of who I should be with. She's her own person. My dad didn't say much, but I could see the understanding in his eyes. He was always the one who tried to balance my mom's more protective nature with his own laid-back approach. My mom, on the other hand, looked like she was processing what I said, probably for the first time. I understand, she said softly, her tone different than before. I just want what's best for you. I know, Mom. But what's best for me isn't necessarily what you think it is. I'm an adult. Emily is an adult. And I need you to respect her choices, even if they don't make sense to you. That was it. I couldn't change the past, but I could change the way things went moving forward. I was committed to making this relationship work, but I needed my family to see Emily for who she was, not just as a girl I was dating but as someone I cared about deeply. After setting those boundaries with my parents, I felt a little lighter. There was no instant resolution, but it felt like I was at least taking control of the situation. I didn't want to fight with Emily anymore, and I didn't want to be stuck between her and my family. But now came the hardest part, waiting. The next few days were rough. Every time my phone buzzed, I'd check it, hoping for a message from Emily. But there was nothing. At first, I tried to keep busy, distracting myself with work and casual conversations with friends. But no matter how many times I tried to shove it out of my mind, I kept coming back to that night, the way things spiraled so quickly, the hurt in Emily's voice, the fact that I couldn't undo any of it. I reached out a couple of times, sending simple, apologetic texts, nothing heavy, just letting her know I was thinking of her. But still, nothing. I started second-guessing everything. Should I have done more to fix things that night? Was I too harsh with my parents? Was Emily regretting the whole relationship? The uncertainty was gnawing at me. Then, on the fourth day, something unexpected happened. I was sitting in my car, getting ready to head to work, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Emily. "Can we talk?" I swear, my heart skipped a beat. I stared at the screen for a second, trying to process the words. Talk? Was this it? Was she giving me a chance to explain? I took a deep breath, not wanting to screw this up again. I quickly typed back, "Yes, of course." "When?" A few seconds later, she replied, "I'll be at the park near your place in an hour. Meet me there?" My stomach flipped. The park near my place was where we had our first date. It felt like a good sign, but I couldn't help the knot forming in my chest. What was she going to say? What if she didn't want to continue? I got to the park a little early, pacing around the path near the small pond where we'd spent hours talking on that first date. I felt like I was walking in circles, trying to calm my nerves, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would decide everything. I couldn't stop thinking about what Emily was going to say. Would she tell me it was over? Would she give me another chance? Eventually, I spotted her walking towards me. She looked a little different, more guarded, like she'd been processing everything that had happened. She was wearing the same jacket she had that first night, and for a second, I almost thought she was the same girl from that night, the one who made me laugh and talk for hours, the one who didn't hesitate to grab my hand. But now? It felt like everything had changed. She stopped a few feet away, not immediately approaching me, almost as if waiting for me to make the first move. "Hey," I said softly, trying to smile, but it probably came out shaky. "I'm glad you reached out. I've been thinking about you." She nodded, looking down for a moment before meeting my eyes. "I've been thinking about us too," she said, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "And I think I need to be honest about something." My heart sank. Was this the "we need to talk" moment? I tried to keep my cool, though I could feel the weight of her words already starting to press down on me. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What's on your mind?" Emily took a deep breath, like she was bracing herself. I think I need someone who's going to stand by me, even when it gets uncomfortable. I'm tired of feeling like I have to fight to be seen for who I really am. I don't want to keep feeling like I'm constantly on the outside, like I don't belong. I wanted to interrupt, to tell her how much I cared, to explain that I never meant for her to feel that way, but I held back. She needed to say everything she was thinking, even if it was hard to hear. "I don't want to feel like I'm just an extension of your life," she continued. "I want to be with you, not just beside you, in the shadows of your family's expectations. And I don't want to feel like I'm walking on eggshells every time I'm around them." Her words cut through me. I knew I'd heard this before, but it wasn't until now that I truly understood the depth of what she was saying. I had been so caught up in trying to keep the peace, trying to please my family, that I didn't see the toll it was taking on her. "I hear you," I said finally, my voice thick with emotion. "I see that now. And I'm sorry. I should have been standing up for you from the start. You deserve someone who's going to have your back, no matter what. I messed up, Emily. And I'm not asking for you to fix things. But I want you to know I'm ready to do better. She looked at me for a long moment, like she was trying to decide whether or not she believed me. I want to believe you, she said softly. I do. But it's going to take time. I nodded. I understand. I'll give you all the time you need. There was a pause, then she took a small step forward. Can we try again? But only if you really mean it. Only if you're ready to show me, not just say it. I felt the weight in my chest lift, but the relief was slow. Yes, I said firmly. I'm ready. For real this time. We stood there for a moment, the silence between us now comfortable rather than tense. I could feel the weight of everything we'd been through, all the miscommunications, all the hurt, but there was something else in the air now: hope. We weren't going to magically fix everything overnight, but this conversation, this moment, felt like the first step toward mending what had been broken. I'm really glad you reached out, I said, finally breaking the silence. I know it's been rough, but I don't want to lose you over this. Emily gave a small, tentative smile, the first real one I'd seen in days. I don't want to lose you either. But we both need to do better, right? Right, I agreed. I've been thinking a lot about what you said. And I promise, I'm going to do better. I'm going to make sure I stand by you, no more hiding, no more second guessing. We're in this together. I believe you, she said, her voice soft but steady. But I need you to prove it. And I need you to prove it not just to me, but to yourself. I can't be the only one putting in the effort. I get it, I said, feeling the weight of those words. I'll prove it. I'm not going anywhere. But I need to know that we can take this one step at a time, that we're both ready to put in the work. She nodded, looking at me with a quiet understanding. One step at a time. No pressure to fix everything right now. Just us, together. We both let out a breath, like we'd been holding it for way too long. And then, almost instinctively, I took her hand in mine. It wasn't some grand gesture, just a simple touch, but it felt right, like we were starting fresh, building a new foundation. As we walked side by side through the park, I knew this wasn't the end. It wasn't the perfect ending where everything magically gets fixed. It was the beginning of something new, something we would have to fight for every day. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the same page. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I wasn't going to let go of Emily without giving everything I had. We had a long road ahead, but at least we were walking it together. And that's where the story ends. I guess if there's any advice I'd give, it's this: don't take your relationships for granted. Don't let the small things pile up until they blow up. Communicate. Be honest. And when things get tough, fight for the people you love, even when it feels easier to walk away. Because sometimes, it's the hard stuff that makes everything worth it.